Have you ever felt a desire in the bedroom that was a little too intense, a little too raw to put into words? You're not alone. For many men, the deepest cravings they have are also the ones they're most hesitant to voice, not because they're wrong, but because they feel deeper than just words. I was talking to a friend the other day, and he confessed something I think a lot of guys feel. He said he sometimes longs for a kind of passion that goes beyond the ordinary, but he doesn't know how to ask for it without feeling like he's being too much. It got me thinking, what if these desires aren't just random? What if they're actually a kind of unspoken language? A language that points to something fundamental in the male psyche. That's why today, we're doing something different. We're going beyond the surface. We're using the profound psychological framework of Carl Jung to explore the 5 passionate moves many men secretly want to try. We're not just talking about the what, but the powerful why behind them. So before we jump into those specific moves, I want to take a quick moment to lay a little groundwork. I promise this isn't going to be a dry psychology lecture. Instead, think of this as getting a decoder ring for a hidden language, the language of desire. Understanding these 2 ideas from Carl Jung's work completely changed how I view my own cravings and my relationship with my partner. It moved things from a place of, is this weird, to a place of, oh, that makes sense. That connects to something real inside me. Let's start with the first concept, which Jung called the anima. Now, that might sound like a complicated term, but the idea is actually quite beautiful and relatable. Jung proposed that deep within every man's psyche, there exists an inner feminine dimension. This isn't about being less of a man. In fact, it's a fundamental part of being a whole, complete one. Think of your anima as your internal world of emotion, your capacity for deep connection, your intuition, and your creativity. It's the part of you that might appreciate art, that feels a profound sense of love, or that gets a gut feeling about a situation. For many men, this part of ourselves can feel distant or even locked away because from a young age, we're often socialized to prioritize action, logic, and strength. But this inner feminine energy doesn't disappear. It just goes underground, and it yearns for expression. In the context of intimacy, a man isn't just seeking a connection with his partner. On a subconscious level, he is also seeking a connection to this lost, inner feminine part of himself, his anima. His partner becomes a kind of mirror, a living connection point to that entire emotional and receptive world within him that he might not have full access to on his own. It's why feeling truly seen and emotionally connected by a partner can make the physical aspect of a relationship so much more powerful and fulfilling. It's not just 2 bodies connecting. It's a man feeling permission to connect with a deeper, more vulnerable part of his own soul. Now, the second concept we need to talk about is the shadow. If the anima is about a missing piece we long for, the shadow is about the pieces of ourselves we've been taught to hide. Your shadow is essentially the basement of your personality. It's where we lock away all the things we deem unacceptable, our raw instincts, our primal urges, our aggression, our selfishness, or even parts of our sexuality that we fear would be judged. We all have a shadow. It's everything we've ever been told was bad or inappropriate since we were kids. The problem isn't that the shadow exists. The problem is when we pretend it doesn't. A repressed shadow doesn't vanish. It just leaks out in unhealthy ways, through projection, where we see these bad qualities in everyone else, or through sudden, uncontrollable outbursts. But here's the beautiful part. Intimacy, particularly passionate and consensually adventurous intimacy, can provide one of the safest and most powerful containers for integrating our shadow. This is where it all comes together. When you're with a trusted partner in a space of mutual agreement, you have a sacred opportunity to gently open that basement door and let some of those locked-away parts see the light. Expressing a more primal urge or a desire for intensity within the clear, loving boundaries of a trusting relationship isn't about being harmful. It's about being whole. It's about showing the most raw, instinctual, and authentic version of yourself and being met not with rejection, but with acceptance and even celebration. That moment of acceptance is profoundly healing. It's the ultimate feeling of being truly known and loved not in spite of your entire self, but because of it. You're able to bring more of yourself to the table, and that creates a depth of connection that is simply impossible if you're only showing the parts of you that you've pre-approved as acceptable. So, with this understanding of the anima, the inner feminine yearning for connection, and the shadow, the repressed self yearning for acceptance, the moves we're about to discuss stop being just a list of physical acts. They transform into a symbolic language. They become rituals of trust, pathways to wholeness, and a dance between two people who are brave enough to explore the full spectrum of what it means to be human, together. It's from this place of deeper understanding that we can now explore those 5 specific moves. Let's start with something that often gets misunderstood, the idea of being physically pinned down. On the surface, this is about a shift in power and physicality. It's that moment of being overwhelmed by your partner's strength, a visceral change in pace where words fall away and everything becomes about sensation and presence. It can feel intense, and from the outside, it might even look like a struggle, but when it's happening with someone you trust implicitly, the feeling is anything but violent. It's a profound and startling form of focus. But if we listen to what Jung might say, this move speaks a much deeper language. It's not about domination over another person. It's about the conscious, consensual expression of a powerful archetype that lives in the shadow, the primal, instinctual self. For many men, this part of themselves is locked away tight. From childhood, they're told to be gentle, to be careful, to use their strength sparingly and never, ever to let it truly out. That raw, animalistic energy, the part that wants to hunt, to protect, to claim and be claimed, gets shoved deep into the basement. The primal pin, when initiated and received with complete trust, becomes a sacred ritual for letting that energy out of its cage in a safe and loving container. It's a man giving himself permission to feel the full force of his own power, not as something to be feared, but as something that can be channeled into passionate, focused presence. He is integrating that wilder part of his shadow and discovering that it can coexist with love and care. And this is where it becomes absolutely vital to talk about how this works in real life, not just in theory. The difference between a terrifying experience and a transcendent one lies entirely in the foundation it's built on. This cannot be in surprise maneuver. It has to be a co-created act. This requires a conversation long before any clothes come off. It means asking, "How would you feel about me holding you down sometime?" and having a safe word that instantly stops everything, no questions asked. It means checking in with your partner's eyes even when words are hard to find. And perhaps most importantly, it requires aftercare. That powerful energy needs to be brought back to earth gently. That means collapsing into each other's arms afterward, not just rolling over. It means soft touches, quiet words of affirmation, a glass of water, and reconnecting as the two whole, complex people you are. That closing of the loop is what transforms a physical act into a true ritual of trust and intimacy. Move 2, the whispered command. Now, let's talk about the power of the voice. This isn't about shouting or drama, it's about the opposite. Imagine a moment of intense closeness where everything slows down, and your partner leans in, her voice dropping to a whisper that's meant for your ears only. It's a direct, quiet command that cuts through all the noise. On the surface, this is about guidance and a shift in dynamic. It's a moment of being told what to do, of surrendering the constant need to lead and initiate that so many men feel is their responsibility. But if we listen closely to that whisper, we can hear 2 profound psychological needs being met. The first is a connection to the anima. The whisper itself is intimate, mysterious, and soft. It's a feminine energy that bypasses our logical defenses and speaks directly to the unconscious. It's an invitation into that inner world of feeling and intuition. The second need is a beautiful relief for the ego, that part of us that feels it always has to be in charge. To be gently commanded by a trusted partner is to be given permission to fully let go. It's a surrender of the constant pressure to perform and decide. In that moment, you are free to simply feel and follow, to be guided by the very connection you're sharing. It's a profound trust exercise where words become the bridge between two worlds. Of course, for this to feel like liberation and not coercion, the context is everything. This only works within a relationship where respect is absolute. It has to come from a place of mutual desire and understanding. A whispered command is a suggestion, an invitation into a shared game. It is never a demand. The freedom to say no or to have a safe word is what makes the surrender of control actually feel safe and truly desired. It's the agreed-upon rules of the game that make playing it so thrilling. Move 3. The role reversal, her in control. For our third move, let's flip the script entirely. This is about one partner taking the lead in a more overt way, guiding the pace and the action. On a physical level, it's a clear change of roles. It's about experiencing intimacy without the pressure to perform or direct the show, which, for many men, can be a surprisingly constant and low-grade anxiety. From a Jungian perspective, this is perhaps the most direct route for a man to connect with his own anima, his inner feminine. Our culture often conditions men to be the doers, the initiators, the ones who are always active. But to be whole, we also need access to the receptive side, the part of us that can simply be, that can receive sensation, emotion, and pleasure without having to orchestrate it. When a man can truly surrender and allow his partner to take control, he is giving that receptive, feminine energy within himself a chance to breathe and come to the forefront. It's not about being passive, it's about being open. It's an act of profound trust that allows him to experience pleasure in a completely new way, through the lens of surrender and receiving, which can be incredibly freeing from the relentless pressure of his own ego. The key to making this work is, unsurprisingly, communication. This kind of role reversal shouldn't be a surprise. It's something to talk about when you're both fully clothed and comfortable. Discuss what it might look like, what you're both curious about, and where the boundaries are. This ensures that when the moment comes, the person leading feels confident and the person surrendering can truly let go, knowing they are in utterly safe hands. It turns the experience from a moment of uncertainty into one of deep connection and exploration. Move 4. Sensory deprivation, e.g., light blindfolding. Let's explore something that seems simple but is incredibly powerful. Taking one sense away. Using something like a light blindfold shifts the entire experience of intimacy. Physically, it's about removing the primary sense we rely on, sight, which instantly heightens every other sensation. The touch of a hand, the sound of a breath, the feeling of the air on your skin. Everything becomes more intense and vivid because your brain isn't being distracted by what it's seeing. Psychologically, this plunge into darkness is a journey inward. Without sight to anchor you to the external world, your consciousness turns inward. You are forced to sit with your own anticipation, your vulnerability, and your imagination. This is a powerful dance between the shadow and the anima. The anima, your inner feminine, is the world of feeling and internal sensation, and with your eyes closed, that world becomes your entire reality. At the same time, the uncertainty, the slight edge of vulnerability that comes from not knowing what comes next, is a gentle brush with the shadow. It's that small, safe encounter with the unknown that makes the entire experience feel so electrically alive. It's not about fear, it's about the thrilling edge of anticipation, knowing your partner is your guide through this new landscape. The absolute non-negotiable here is trust. To willingly give up your sight is to make yourself completely vulnerable to your partner. That's why this requires explicit consent and a deep-seated trust that your partner will honor and care for that vulnerability. The person guiding the experience has a responsibility to be attentive, communicative, and deeply present. A simple, "How does this feel?" or a soft touch can be an anchor that makes the entire experience feel safe, allowing for a truly profound and shared journey. Move 5. Aggressive affection, biting, scratching. Finally, let's talk about a category of moves that is often the most misunderstood, things like a passionate bite or a scratch. It's crucial to state up front that this is never, ever about causing harm or real pain. On a surface level, it's about a sharp, intense spike of sensation. It's a punctuation mark in a sentence of touch. It's a way of expressing a feeling that is so fervent, so overwhelming, that a gentle caress somehow doesn't feel like it does it justice. Jung would see this as a powerful expression of the shadow. Remember, the shadow holds our raw, instinctual urges. This is about the desire to feel intensely and to be felt, to leave a momentary mark, to make the intangible passion of the moment somehow tangible. It's a raw, physical language that says, "This moment is so powerful, I want to remember it on my skin." It's about integrating that fervent, passionate part of the self that society often tells us to temper and quiet. It's the safe and consensual expression of that too much feeling, allowing it to exist and be welcomed within the bounds of loving intimacy. This, more than any other move, requires crystal clear communication and boundaries. What kind of sensation is desired? How much is too much? This is not the place for assumptions. It requires a conversation about preferences and a commitment to paying exquisite attention to your partner's reactions. It's about finding that perfect edge of intensity that translates passion into sensation without ever tipping over into discomfort. And as with all of these moves, it should always be followed by the softness of aftercare, a gentle kiss on the spot, a soothing touch that reaffirms the care and love within which this intensity exists. It's this combination that transforms a bite into a word in your private language of love. Now, after diving into all of this, there's something incredibly important we have to talk about. It's the most vital part of this entire conversation. While understanding the psychology behind these desires can be enlightening and even liberating, it is absolutely critical to remember that a psychological explanation is never a free pass. It is never an excuse. Just because we can trace a craving back to an archetype or an inner world doesn't obligate anyone, especially your partner, to fulfill it. The framework of Jungian psychology is meant to give us insight and self-awareness, not a list of demands. The moment this knowledge is used as a tool of pressure, it betrays the very purpose of this deeper understanding, which is to foster connection, not coercion. This is why the real magic, the true transformation, doesn't happen in the act itself but in the conversations that surround it. The foundation for exploring any of this isn't just desire. It's immense, unshakable trust and clear, compassionate communication. This means having conversations when you're both fully clothed, completely sober, and nowhere near the bedroom. It's about curiosity, not criticism. It's saying, "I read about this interesting idea and it made me think about us," or, "I sometimes have this feeling I can't quite name, can we talk about it?" It's creating a safe space where both people can express their curiosities, their boundaries, and their fears without any judgment. This pre-negotiation is what makes the difference between an experience that feels scary and violating and one that feels thrilling and connecting. It's the difference between surprising someone and betraying their trust, and co-creating an experience that brings you closer. And perhaps the most beautiful and necessary part of this entire process is what comes after, aftercare. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a non-negotiable part of the ritual. After you've explored those intense, vulnerable, or primal places together, you have to help each other come back. This is the gentle landing. It's collapsing into each other's arms, feeling the sweat cool and heart rates return to normal. It's getting a glass of water for each other, sharing a soft blanket, and exchanging quiet, affirming words. It's the gentle touch that says, "I'm still here with you, and we are okay." This practice of reconnecting is what seals the experience in trust and love. It reassures your nervous system and your heart that even though you ventured into a more wild or vulnerable space, you did it together, and you've returned to the safety of your connection. It integrates the experience, making it a building block of intimacy rather than an isolated event. Ultimately, this journey is not about checking off a list of moves from a video. It's not a performance or a test. It's about learning a deeper language, the language of your own desires and your partner's. It's about having a new lens to understand those unspoken whispers of your heart and body. When you approach intimacy with this level of care, communication, and respect, you're doing more than just spicing up your sex life. You are building a relationship where both people feel seen, accepted, and safe enough to be their whole, authentic selves. And that is where you find not just passion, but a truly connected and fulfilling partnership. So, what do you think? I know this was a different kind of conversation, one that goes a little deeper beneath the surface. I personally find that looking at our desires through this Jungian lens doesn't make them less powerful, but it does make them make more sense. It turns a confusing or even shameful feeling into something that can be understood, talked about, and integrated into a healthy relationship. I'm really curious to know if this resonates with you. Does thinking about the anima or the shadow help you understand your own cravings or your partner's a little better? Please, take a second and share your thoughts or even just a reaction down in the comments below. This is such a rich topic, and I learned so much from the conversations we have as a community. If this way of looking at things felt helpful or opened a new door for you, then I'd be truly honored if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. We try to create all of our content with this same goal, to use insights from psychology to help us all navigate modern relationships with more understanding, compassion, and connection. Your subscription helps us keep making this kind of content and lets you know when we've dropped a new video that might be helpful for your journey. And finally, if you found even one little insight here that made you think, "Wow, I'd never considered that," then please consider passing it along. Share this video with your partner or with a friend you can have these deep, real conversations with. Because the more we can normalize talking about the full spectrum of intimacy, not just the surface level stuff, the more we can all feel a little less alone in our desires and a little more equipped to build the deeply connected relationships we all crave. Thanks for watching and for being a part of this conversation.